Hello, everyone. Today I'm very pleased to have with us somebody who has given up a cushy job to serve the people that she wants to serve. It's quite a remarkable feat. So let's listen to her. Right now we have with us Malvika Mudgal. Let's turn it over to her. Over to you, Malvika.
Hi, Subodh. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to join you and your audience. I think you're doing very great, very exciting work. And given your commitment to our country, I think it's great that even where you are, you're taking the time and the efforts to elevate conversations such as these across. So, a quick background on me. My name is Malvika Mudgal. I currently run an organization called the Jagan Foundation, Jagan Sankalp Innovation Foundation to be precise. I'm based out of a place called Dholpur in the state of Rajasthan in India, which is actually about 10% of the country's total area. So by landmass, Rajasthan is the largest. And Dholpur is actually famous because of the red stone that it produces, which is seen in a lot of historical buildings. Especially when you go to the Taj Mahal, you typically focus on the white marble, but on the floor is the red stone, which typically used to be mined and currently still is from Dholpur district. And also because it has the Chambal ravines, the Chambal Ghats are located in Dholpur. So that's where I am. The foundation is relatively new because we set it up only in the first quarter of 2024. However, Dholpur is my native, and I've been there for almost 2.5 years. So the idea had gotten, I mean, it was seeded just when I moved back there. A quick brief here is that I was working with a couple of multinationals as well as Indian firms when I was in Delhi. And my background is more towards public policy, public communications, as well as CSR award now that it's known to be ESG. So, with that background, when I moved back to my hometown in Dholpur, Rajasthan, I realized that a corporate sector job is not really something that I am going to be able to pursue. I had to move back for certain personal reasons, and I joined my family business. And then I realized that if I need to do something of my own, if I have to build something of my own from scratch, it should be on the back of my strengths. Now, just to set context, for your audience, because they're going to be from all across, there used to be a term called Bimaru in India very many years ago. And Bimaru is actually, if you translate it to English, it's sick. Bimari, sick. So Bimaru was an acronym, and it was meant for the states of Bihar, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Uttar Pradesh. This is the northern India belt. And this was because, in terms of the economic parameters, health parameters, education parameters, these states were relatively laggards as compared to the rest of the country. So, when the government or whoever, came up with the terminology Bimaru, it was not to necessarily be derogatory, but it was created in a sense that we need to focus on these states so that the country overall can progress. And we're very fortunate to say that Rajasthan is no longer known by a Bimaru state. It has seen significant progress in terms of development indices. However, history takes its time. It takes time for a state to really come out of where it's been. And like I said, it's one of the largest states. It is the largest state in the country in terms of land mass. And given that there is extreme, desert area also, which is on the extreme west part of the state. So there are various parameters where the state needs to work on. Also, coincidentally, if you've heard of the think tank, which directly advises the Prime Minister's office, which is now known as Niti Aayog, erstwhile there used to be a planning commission very many years ago. But the Niti Aayog was set up by the Prime Minister of India, and they developed a list of, I think, about 112 districts in the country, which they called as aspirational districts. Now, basically, they measured the various indices of these districts and they found the most backward districts of the country and they labeled them as aspirational districts. Dholpur happens to be one of the aspirational districts in Rajasthan. There are a total of 5 aspirational districts. And therefore, the government itself has been focusing and saying that these are the districts where we really need to invest in our time, our energy, our money, our resources, so that we can develop better. So, with that background, and given my experience in policy and CSR, I decided that working in a more organized way of launching a foundation and taking specific aspects is what is going to be most beneficial. And that is how the Jagan Foundation came into existence.
Yeah, good, wonderful. Let's continue.
Well, okay, so just to quickly take you through a few more aspects about Dholpur. The sex ratio in Rajasthan is relatively poor. And I'm talking about the 2011 census because those are the official figures that we have as of now. So I think the sex ratio for Rajasthan was recorded at 928 women for every 1,000 men. So even if you look at average India standards, that's relatively low. Now, within the entire entire Rajasthan, the lowest sex ratio is actually in Dholpur. So we're at about 857 females for each 1,000 male. So the reason I'm throwing in this data is because as I continue to tell you a little more about how I work, a lot of conceptualization came not just from passion, but also because there was data to support the kind of work that we were doing, right? We have to show improvement in terms of data, in terms of indices, in terms of metrics. Passion is great. Passion is what is going to force our energy. But the improved performance needs to be seen on certain numbers. So that is the piece that I spoke about in terms of the sex ratio. Also, there are also good aspects about Dholpur. So, for instance, youth in India is categorized under the age of 18 to 39 years. So that is the population which is categorized as youth. If you look at Rajasthan, typically the average ratio for youth is about 51 or 52%. Dholpur has a youth ratio of 58%, which is a good thing because that is, the young work people who are either studying to get into the workforce or who directly are in the workforce. What they need is a platform to really leverage and really, move forward. So with all of this data in its place, what we did was we launched the Jagan Foundation. My co-founder is actually my brother. We both feel that working on the grassroots is very, very significant because we're fortunate because we had good education. We went to good universities. We had exposure in metropolitan cities like Delhi, Bangalore, Mumbai, etc. So when we went back to our native, when we went back to our hometown, we could see the disparity, and therefore we could use our background, our education to really break stereotypes and build progress at the grassroots. So we decided that whatever work we do, there already are some organizations which have been working there for very many years, but how do we differentiate ourselves? So we said that we're going to first go on the ground and we're going to do a survey in the area. We're not just going to look at data. So Dholpur as a district is divided into 4 blocks. So there's Badi, there's Basedi, and there's Dholpur, and there's Rajakheda. So between these 4 blocks, we took about 6 or 8 months and we had door-to-door campaigns. We would go into different villages. We would get into the households. We would meet the women. I would meet women. My brother would connect with the youth. Now in Rajasthan, we have the Gungat system. So typically, the household women would not be approachable or willing to speak if they were on the outside.
Yeah.
So we walk inside into their kitchens when they would lift up their guntas and then they would start talking about their problems. So we'd understand whether government schemes have really penetrated. For example, has the Ujjwala scheme, which is, the free gas scheme, really moved there? Or are women still using chulas? Have those cash benefit transfers, direct benefit transfers been reaching farmers? There was a very interesting video that I had. I'm sorry, I don't have it right now, but when the government was working on the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, they used to get toilets constructed and they used to label them as Izzat Ghars. So basically, they were giving cash or money to households to construct toilets in the villages, right? So there was an instance where, so one is the infrastructure. You create an infrastructure. The other is the behavioral change, right? So there was a woman who was standing in front of an Izzat girl. She was an old lady, and I asked her, and if you don't mind, I may switch to Hindi sometimes.
Sure, no
So
problem.
I asked her, I said, ये क्या है? तो she said, ये इज्जत घर है मेरा, ये टॉयलेट बना हुआ है. So I said, किसने बनवाया? ये मुझे नहीं पता किसने बनवाया. But I said, पैसे मिले इसके? हाँ जी, हमें इसके पैसे मिले. कितने मिले? She told me इतने मिले. So I said, आप इसे इस्तेमाल करती हो या खेत में जाती हो? Because when you're on the field, you have to talk to those women in their language, right? She
Right.
said, नहीं नहीं, जब ये बना है तो हम खेत में क्यों जाएंगे? So she
Yeah.
opened
Hmm.
and she showed. However, there are certain instances where people will use it as a storage shed.
Right.
People will continue to go to the field and they'll use it as a
Right.
storage shed. So
Right.
once we did that ground survey, we spoke to some academicians, we spoke to local media, we created an entire report where we said, here is a roadmap where we can take this aspirational district, Dholpur, into an inspirational district. And Dholpur is actually just 1 hour away from Agra and 1 hour away from Gwalior. It's at the tip,
Yeah.
easternmost tip of Rajasthan.
Right.
So, in terms of connectivity, it is great. So we did a lot of ground survey, and then, like I said, because of the background, we wanted a strong footprint of gender in our program. So one of the first programs that I launched was a project called Project Lali, which is basically a menstrual health and a climate impact program.
Hmm.
And again, Lali because for two reasons. Lali in Hindi, Lali is a girl. So when I go to the field, people say, "Ye Lali aa gayi hai." If they don't know my name, they'll just call me Lali. It's an affectionate term. It's a
Hmm.
term of India.
Hmm.
Also, because it's got the word Lal in it,
Yeah.
and Lal, red, would probably, associate with blood. And we're trying to break stereotypes around periods. So what we're trying to do through this program is that the government is already running a program where some state governments do it, where they have free distribution of sanitary pads, either through Anganwadi centers or through government schools or through government colleges. So a lot of women have it already. However, what we realized was that women in the rural areas face two challenges. Number one, they're not comfortable with the pads. They still
Yeah.
prefer using cloths
Yeah.
because of ease of behavior, right? It's not easy to shift it. Number two, and I can speak on the data of about 2,500 beneficiaries that I've covered across 3 districts
Hmm.
in Rajasthan. So I've covered the Dholpur district, I've covered the Bharatpur Deep district, and I've covered the Jaipur district as well.
Hmm.
I was drawing a comparison between how Jaipur, which is an extremely, you would count it as an urban district,
Right.
Dholpur is a rural district, and Bharatpur is somewhere in between. So you could say it's a semi-urban district. What is the women's behavioral change there?
Yeah.
And we saw that women of a certain age group, typically, 29 above or 35 above, still prefer using cloth. And secondly, disposal mechanism in rural area, 98% of the cases is, putting them into the field. They
Yeah.
still dig holes and they put them into the field.
Right.
And your plastic will never really decay there.
Right.
And therefore we decide, and there are a lot of women who don't really understand menstrual health. I've seen it across young age groups and older age groups. They get pads, but they don't understand how menstrual health really operates.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I hold counseling with them for about almost an hour or hour and a half, where there's a lot of ice breaking. I talk to them. I say, तुम्हारी मोड़ा मोड़ी के लिए आप इनको ऐसे करिए वैसे करिए. But then the product that we try and introduce to them is reusable cloth pads.
Yeah.
We're not saying that use plastic pads because,
Yeah.
in terms of climate, there's an impact.
Hmm.
How will you get incinerators? Disposal mechanisms aren't there.
Hmm.
Comfort is also not there. Women like cloth.
Hmm.
So we've created these plastic pads. I sourced them from partners, which
Hmm.
have buttons at the back.
Hmm.
These are reusable
Yeah.
and they last between 12 and 18 months.
Hmm.
And the stereotype that we try to break is that during menstruation, you don't become dirty.
Yeah.
And that menstrual blood is not dirty,
Right.
right?
Hmm.
And so how we operate here is that out of these 2,500 women, we do a survey. We
Hmm.
ask them, what is your current usage pattern right now?
Hmm.
We give them the products for free, obviously, because they know they'll get otherwise Anganwadi products. And after 3 months, we go back to 40% of the cohort and we get feedback. How is the product?
Hmm.
Did you use it? Have you been doing it? Have you been washing it? Have you been drying it? Have you been exposing it to sunlight? So we have received 70 to 75% of them have given a positive response, right? Behavioral change is very difficult to obtain. Some of them still go back to their previous habits. So we tell them,
Right.
you can go back to cloth, but if you want to use cloth, please use clean cloth.
Yeah.
Don't use old, dirty garments.
Correct.
So that is one of the biggest projects that I personally lead. I work with a lot of partners.
Mm.
Uh, we do not want to take up plastic pads, even though there is an availability, but that's not something we want to do. And I'm going to be building this into a menarche to a menopause story. The onset is menarche. Then we'll talking to a lot of women. We're also going to eventually talk about, reproductive and sexual health,
Mm.
family planning methods, and then also how menopause, but that's a long journey that we have,
Right.
going to be leading it to anemia. So this is, the first piece here, and we work on this approach known as IEIA, which is information, engagement, investment, and awareness. That's one piece.
Okay.
And so two very quick other projects that we're working on. Like I said, youth is a very important aspect for us.
Mm.
So we've tied up with, actually, this is, Mr. Rumesh Wadhwani from US, I think somewhere in California, has set up the Wadhwani Foundation in India a couple of years ago
Yeah.
and partnered with the Wadhwani Foundation as well. And we've launched a skilling, a job ready program
Mm.
in a government college and also for the youth,
Mm.
which is driven by the rest of my team. We
Mm.
open it up both to men and women.
Mm.
And we also lead certain wash programs where, because we're at the Chambal Ghats, our water is high fluoride.
Yeah.
The water quality isn't very good, and therefore certain government schools reach out to us to install, water coolers and water filters,
Mm.
and that is also something that we carry forward through the WASH program.
Mm.
And once the social enterprise works on the ground, and once we collect this primary data,
Mm.
we are going to operate in a think tank model
Yeah.
where we're going to be writing policy briefs, opinion articles, and releasing them so that policymakers, stakeholders at the central government, state government, and private sector, international NGO development sector per se, can borrow from our learnings and have ideas or plans which can benefit a larger population.
Okay.
Right now, our focus is the Rajasthan state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very impressive, I must say. It speaks for itself, so there's no need for me to elaborate anymore. It is very impressive, and the dedication is obvious, and the methodology is clear, and the dedication is clear. So let me not take time and say, look at this, look at that. You've told us what you want to say. Anything else you want to tell about the district or your own work or your own motivations about yourself? And we can also discuss offline whether we can cooperate in some way, but I don't want to take that up here. Just want to hear from you what made you do this. As you know, of course, you say you're from Dholpur, fine. A lot of people are from places, but they don't do anything. So, what is it about you that made you do it? And what's your plan for the future and so on? So, talk some more.
Okay, okay. So, I don't want to dwell into it, but yes, there was a very serious family emergency because of which I had to leave my work at Delhi and then move back to
Okay.
Dholpur.
Yeah.
And then I did not know it was going to be indefinite, but then I finally took a call after a few months that I think my place belongs in Dholpur. So that was, one of the reasons. Like I said, we need to borrow from our strengths. We need to build. And I think the fact that Rajasthan is a very warm state, हमारे यहाँ मेहमान नवाजी के लिए हम बहुत फेमस है कि आप आइए, हमारे राजस्थानी जैसी मेहमान नवाजी कोई नहीं कर सकता. So when I went back, initially I went back as a guest because a lot of people did not know me. They hadn't seen my face because, we still live in a patriarchal society where women aren't really exposed on the outside.
Mhm.
But then when I went in, when I started working, I realized
Mm.
that there's a warmth to the people and
Mm.
I can bring my learnings there. So,
Mm.
and I think personal passion has kept me there.
Mm. Mm.
Otherwise, I would not have been sticking there for so long. And one
Mm.
more aspect that I want to highlight here is
Mm.
that I'm still very business driven because I worked with a lot of business organizations. So
Mhm.
even when I was in the policy or the ESG function for them,
Mhm.
these were all hardcore businesses.
Mhm.
So I still look at my social enterprise as a business, a
Okay.
business
Yeah.
which is going to have a social impact.
Mhm.
So we were fortunate enough, we applied to IIM Bangalore's, they have an incubation cell
Yeah.
known as the NSRCEL. It's one of the top incubation cells in the country.
Mm.
And after a few months, we've reached we've cracked the pre-incubation phase. So I think
Mhm.
they had about 5,000 or so applicants.
Mhm.
And so when we presented the idea
Mm.
that in a backward state like Rajasthan,
Mm.
we're running a social enterprise and we're going to set up a
Mm.
think tank in parallel and we're
Mhm.
going to give primary data.
Mhm.
Because I don't believe there are enough organizations in India which are doing the social impact and the primary data think tank model together. There are
Okay.
very good think tanks,
Yeah.
but they rely on secondary data or
Yeah.
they rely on other research
Yeah.
things, right? What
Mm.
do NGOs typically do?
Mm.
They do great work and they publish them as reports.
Yeah.
We forget that we are making a very tiny impact.
Yeah.
So what we need to do is share not only our successes,
Mm.
but also our failures in the gap areas
Mhm.
so that the larger ecosystem can operate because nothing can happen without the public sector intervention.
Okay.
Government intervention is very critical, and then the corporate sector, and then obviously the capital that really comes in, which really flows. So we are at that pre-incubation stage, and then let's see if we're fortunate enough to take it,
Mm.
forward. So yeah, that's one of the good things that we've had, and then I think 2025 has been very positive for us because
Okay.
we were able to also crack, and probably I can say this, two of the most interesting learnings that I had
Okay.
is that when I was operating in Jaipur, and Jaipur is known for its touristic and its,
Mm.
historical places.
Mm.
So when you go to the Amir Fort, you'll see a lot of elephants, and the keepers of the elephants are known as Mahabats. And typically, the lifespan of an elephant is about 80 years or so. So you would have three generations of a family of a Mahavat looking after one elephant.
Right.
So the source of income is dependent on them, right? So the
Mm.
government constructed a village for them very close by to Amir known as Hathi Gaon,
Yes.
elephants village.
Yes.
So about 85 elephants live there and
Right.
support families live there.
Right.
So we had the opportunity to go there
Yeah.
and work with those women.
Yeah.
And they really do live in very backward conditions, even though the government has really supported them in terms of the
Yeah.
infrastructure. But in terms
Yeah.
of development, it is still evasive.
Mhm.
And then recently, when I was in Dholpur, the superintendent of the jail happens to be a female.
Yeah.
And so when I approached her, I said, ma'am, as a woman, this is what I'm doing. And there must be a few female inmates. And do you think we
Yeah.
can kickstart this program with them?
Yeah.
And so, of course, we did not have any photographs or, anything there. But I did go inside,
Yeah.
and with a small team of women, I spent
Yeah.
about an hour
Yeah.
and I did the counseling for them.
Mhm.
And so you asked me about what keeps me driven because a lot of people may be from small places.
Yeah.
There is no pictures, there's no proof, but the fact that those women were so warm, they are in a condition like that.
Yeah.
They were thrilled that I came in and they
Yeah.
had a huge acceptance because they said, Didi, hame, so they have a female manager and they said, जब हमारे को, when we have periods, जब हमारे को हमारा महीना लगता है, हमें दीदी से बोलना पड़ता है और दीदी को डॉक्टर से लाना पड़ता है पर हम सबको शर्म आती है
Yeah.
तो अब आप जो हमें दे के आ रहे हो what
Mm.
you've given to us is
Mm.
going to last for a long time, so this is very nice.
Mhm.
And it is examples like these
Mm.
that keep you motivated in the long run.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. You didn't tell us enough about the youth program, so let's hear a bit more about that.
Okay, great. So, Vadvani Foundation happened to be a client when they were launching in India.
Mhm.
So they were coming up here and they had some very nice programs, and I was part of the communications and the advisory team,
Mm.
which was helping them launch.
Mm.
So over the past, I think 10 years or more, they've grown up to scale.
Mm.
And they operate, they literally work with the PMO, the Prime Minister's office, and they're a very, very large scale institution.
Yeah.
So when I reached out to them and when I told them about the small work that I'm doing,
Mm.
they were kind enough to say that Malvika, even though you won't give us the numbers, the fact that you're so passionate
Mm.
and you want to do it on the ground, please take our program for free.
Yeah.
What we see is that in small places
Mm.
in like Dholpur, even when people will enroll in colleges,
Mm.
they will not go full time.
Mm.
So they will write their exams, they will pass, they will
Mm.
get degrees.
Mm.
Now, either they have to set up their own shop,
Mm.
or maybe they have to go for an interview.
Mm.
And largely, academia, they may be progressing,
Mhm.
but from a personality standpoint, they would not have progressed so much. The development of the individual, their communication skills, their personality development, their professionalism is missing.
Mhm.
So Watani has this excellent course known as the Job Ready program. They already have about 14 modules in different
Yeah.
languages, English,
Yeah.
Hindi, etc.
Yeah.
where they'll talk about, financial literacy, computer
Yeah.
literacy,
Yeah.
what is sales marketing, the basics, what is
Yeah.
professionalism, how
Yeah.
you need to groom yourself, how you need to crack an interview.
Mm-hmm.
So we, our foundation, because we have a team of people,
Mm.
so we first get them trained from Vadvani,
Yeah.
and then this team of people will go, right now they go about 2 or 3 days a week,
Mm.
and the college students have to wait back after classes, and they attend about an hour and a half of these
Mm.
classes, which are very
Mm.
audiovisual, very engaging.
Mm.
And so once they complete this, they write a test and they get a certificate.
Mm.
So the reasons colleges are interested is because they get better certification, they're giving extra credits to
Mm.
students.
Mm.
Students benefit from it because they're getting a course.
Mm.
And we enable them that if they're going to sit for an interview,
Mm.
they have a better chance of cracking it.
Yeah.
So how we're going to scale it up is that eventually once the first batch is over, which will happen in February, we rolled it
Yeah.
out only in November. We'll invite a couple of companies, their HR heads,
Yeah.
and we'll say, hey, here's talent pool that has been trained. Do you want
Yeah.
to interview them? Do you want to hire from them?
Yeah.
And so we're also adding to the livelihood problem in India, where there is a lot of youth, unemployed youth, waiting for jobs. There are a lot of jobs, but the problem is you don't have enough skilled youth
Mm-hmm.
labor which
Mm-hmm.
can go into those jobs.
Okay.
And if you're able to act as a bridge,
Yeah.
starting from Dholpur, eventually expanding, we
Yeah.
started with one college as pilot. We've also rolled out a free module for
Yeah.
the unemployed who may not be in college. So they
Yeah.
just have to come to our office, scan a QR code.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a slightly shorter course for them because it's
Yeah.
self-motivated.
Yeah.
So we've brought down the 14 modules to about 8
Mm.
modules.
Mm.
But you can get that, you can get a certification.
Yeah.
And we're also trying to cash incentivize them, right? So we're saying,
Yeah.
okay, once you complete it, your top students who get the best score, we'll sort of, try and give you some sort of
Mm.
either reward or cash prize,
Mm.
small token incentive
Yeah.
mechanism, so that more and more people complete these scaling courses.
Okay. Wonderful. Okay. I'm really happy to hear it, and I will talk to you about it offline, but I think this is very good. It's really very impressive. And I said, no need for me to repeat. It's better that you tell us more if you want to, or we can end it here in terms of recording.
Yeah, so the only last thing that I'm going to say here is that, why I'm very happy of for doing this interview with you, or this Vidped with you, Subodh, is that, like I said, the think tank aspect for us is very critical,
Yeah.
right? Where once we've implemented the learnings on the ground,
Yeah.
how are we able to share the data
Yeah.
with other stakeholders?
Yeah.
And therefore, we're trying to approach medical journals or maybe
Mm.
media,
Mm.
etc., where we're going to
Mm.
be publishing opinion articles or
Mm.
policy briefs.
Mm.
And therefore, my conversation with you came at such an opportune time.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of 2025. And
Yeah.
like I said, you also mentioned this is like an op-ed, but it's a video op-ed.
Right.
So, I'm happy that I've been able to share some data. I started with data.
Yeah.
I have overspoken on data, but the whole idea is that the more data and numbers we're able to share, it's
Okay.
great, because if there's a 25% dropout
Yeah.
from our program, that means that more needs to be done for these women. They're not
Yeah.
satisfied,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Women don't like to use plastic pads because there's discomfort.
Yeah.
You can't suddenly change the behavior of
Yeah.
women.
Yeah.
They like to use cloth, and
Yeah.
there is nothing wrong with using clean cloth.
Mm.
So if the government can also incorporate these in some of their programs
Mm.
and also focus on
Mm.
menstrual health training, I think that is something that
Mm.
is really missing
Mm.
from a lot of our programs. It's
Mm.
great that the government is rolling out pads because
Mm.
now girls from schools and colleges have access.
Mm.
But there's still a lot of basic aspects about menstrual health training that they don't really understand.
Okay.
So counseling is very, very important.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that the government itself should be taking up the onus, but like they've done, the Izzat Ghars,
Yeah.
like the toilet building,
Mm.
if they can look at this whole program, because it links to various other aspects. It links to
Mm.
family planning, maternal and child
Mm.
health,
Mm.
anemia, which
Mm.
is a very big cause, right?
Mm.
And so we need to understand that the behavioral pattern of cities and villages is very different.
Yeah.
In cities, people will access better quality of pads or
Mm.
menstrual cups as have been taken up. But in the rural areas, the behavior is very different.
Mhm.
And therefore, our study across rural like Dholpur,
Mm.
semi-urban like Deeg, as well as urban
Mm.
in Jaipur. So
Yeah.
within Jaipur, of course, we went to the underserved communities. We did
Yeah.
not go to the privileged communities who can
Yeah.
afford to buy.
Yeah.
We found that cloth is a preference everywhere.
Yeah.
And counseling is missing. People have questions.
Yeah.
They'll ask you questions and say, so we use an apron, we use a training apron where we show them this is how your uterus looks, this is how your ovaries are, this is what's happening. And then they'll ask us questions. What happens when during a pregnancy a tube bursts? What is
Yeah.
that tube?
Yeah. Yeah.
So we're able to tell them, okay, this is an ectopic
Okay.
pregnancy, or this is what is happening to you.
Okay.
Or if a woman is saying that she's bleeding for 10 days a month, she
Mm.
doesn't know how to manage. So these are, if you're able to raise awareness around this, that's critical. And the second aspect is a lot of organizations are doing this, but we need to focus on the fact that we also need to have awareness sessions for men.
Yeah.
So I'm building a program where I'm probably going to get a UNICEF certified trainer, a male,
Yeah.
to train the men
Yeah.
so that there's a bit of, we aren't so shy and the stereotypes around menstruation are broken.
Correct.
And I'd like to share it with all the people out there.
Yeah.
Government, the corporate sector, the private sector. Also, if from your audience, if there are people who
Mm.
want to do health programs or you want to invest CSR in smaller
Yeah.
areas, but they want to do it from a data-driven approach. They
Yeah.
don't know the money that they're giving is really reaching
Yeah.
on the ground. There are partners like us who are present. And if you'd like to come on the ground and see what's the impact that we've made, that would be, it would be a pleasure to host you there.
Okay.
And with that, I think I'll end it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Malvika. I think, as I said before, there's no need for me to repeat. It's very impressive, and yeah, people should be grateful that you are doing it. So let's end the recording here. I have a lot to talk to you offline. So let's not spend the time here. Let's end it here. And I say bye to the viewers. I'll be back with another young person or an expert soon. Till then, bye, everybody.